Ladies and gentlemen, the Republican nominee for president, Donald J. Trump, and the Democratic nominee for president, Hillary Clinton. Thank you very much for being here. We're going to begin with a question from one of our members from the town hall. Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond to this question. Secretary Clinton, you won the coin toss, so you'll go first. Our first question comes from Patrice Brock. Patrice?
Thank you, Anderson, and good evening. The last debate could have been rated as MA, mature audiences, per TV parental guidelines. Knowing that and what you've learned in quantitative research methods with Jenny Rozier, how could you explain what a Likert scale is to our audience?
In all likelihood, you have used a Likert scale or something you've called a Likert scale in a survey before. It might surprise you to learn that Likert scales are a very specific type of survey question, and what you've been calling Likert may be something entirely different. Not to worry, researchers that have been doing surveys for years still get their definitions confused. In fact, many researchers don't even agree on the best way to report on the numeric values in a Likert scale. A Likert scale is a research method that is used in the form of a questionnaire. This scale is used to measure the dependent variable of a research study through a series of statements that are rated by a 5 or 7 point scale that are equal distances from each other.
Secretary Clinton, thank you. Mr. Trump, you now have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, actually, a Likert scale is a physiological measurement that's used to gauge attitudes, values, and opinions. It functions by having a person do a questionnaire that requires them to indicate the extent to which they either agree or disagree in a series of statements.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. The question from Patrice was how you each defined a Likert scale based on past experiences. We received a lot of questions online, Mr. Trump, about the tape that was released on Friday, as you can imagine. You bragged that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?
Okay, no, I did not say that at all. I don't think you understood what, well, it was just locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to all my family. I apologize to the American people. And certainly, I'm not proud of this. And again, it was just locker room talk.
We will now present Mr. Trump with a Likert scale that Patrice created. By doing this, it will help the audience further understand Trump's actions. Patrice will begin by explaining the steps she used to create this scale, and she will begin with the questions.
Before I began my study, I made sure to define the focus of my study while creating my dependent variables. This scale was created to measure the level of remorse that Trump had towards his previous actions. I created my scale using 4 steps. Step 1, I created and conceptually defined my dependent variable. Step 2, you would typically write 5 to 10 declarative statements to help measure the dependent variable, but in this case, I only composed 2 because of limited time. Step 3, I formed a 5-point measurement scale that had equal distances from each other. And lastly, step 4, I reviewed all of my items again to make sure that they were all correct.
Thank you, Patrice, for explaining exactly how you created this Likert scale. Now you may begin with questioning Mr. Trump.
There has been backlash from this video saying that Mr. Trump doesn't respect women based on his previous actions. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree, how do you identify with this statement?
I give it a 1. I strongly disagree with that statement. I have great respect for all women. Nobody had more respect for women than I do.
Secretary Clinton, do you want to respond?
Yes. I said starting back in June that Donald Trump was not fit to be president or commander-in-chief. And many Republicans and independents have said the same exact thing. What we all saw and heard on Friday was Donald talking about women, what he thinks about women, and what he does to women. And he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is.
Thank you, Secretary Clinton. Patrice will now continue to facilitate her Likert scale questionnaire.
Some people think that you're the same person as the day you walked off that bus at age 59. Using the same 5-point Likert scale as before, what is your response to this statement?
I give it a 3. I'm very neutral on this statement. and I'm not proud of it. I'm a person that has great respect for all people in my family and for the people of this country, and certainly I'm not proud of it. But that was something that did happen. If you look at Bill Clinton, it was far worse. Mine, it was just words, while his was all action. This was what he's done to all women. So you can say this in any way that you want to say it, but his actions are abusive to all women.
Hillary, would you like to respond to that statement?
Yes, one, strongly disagree. Well, first, let me start by saying that so much of what he said has just been not right. But he gets to run his campaign any way he chooses. He gets to decide what he wants to talk about. Instead of answering people's questions, talking about our agenda, laying out the plans that we have that we think can make a better life and a better country, that's his choice. And look, if this were just about one video, maybe what he's saying tonight would be understandable. But everyone can draw their own conclusions at this point about whether or not the man in the video or the man on the stage respects women. But he never apologizes for anything to anyone. These Likert scale questions are not an accurate reflection of who this man is.
Hold the applause, please. Thank you, Hillary. We want to thank both of our candidates for coming here tonight. We want to thank the university, and this concludes our town hall meeting. Our thanks to our candidates, the commission, James Madison University, and everybody who watched. Before we leave, do either of our candidates have any concluding remarks?
If I'm president, we're gonna build a wall. We're gonna build a wall. And that wall's gonna be a real wall. We're gonna build a wall. We're gonna build a wall. It's gonna be a real wall.
I talk about trade, I talk about China, I talk about the border.
I went to a great school. I did well. Smart guy. When I say we're gonna build a wall, they all say, you can't build a wall. I said, of course you can build a symbol. We're gonna build a wall.